This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Robin.
Oh, fuck. My name is Robin Long, and I'm an alcoholic. I think Sonia should speak. She was really good. I'm really nervous. I said I wasn't going to cuss, and the first thing I did was cuss. Okay, real quick, what it was like, what happened, what it's like today. I'm an alcoholic, and I did some drugs on the side. I did enough to get me here. I've been sober 3 times. I tried it once. It was okay. I tried it the second time. I didn't like being sober that time so much, so I tried it a 3rd time, and it worked the best that time. So it stuck. In a general way, I hope, because sometimes I give too many details and it gets weird. Really weird. I was raised in a middle-class, military Jewish family, and I was raised to believe that Jews don't drink and Jews don't do drugs. That was the wrong program. This is the right program. And no one that I was raised around drank, and no one abused drugs, except my brother. And my brother taught me how to drink, and he taught me how to party. I have 2 brothers that are older and 1 sister that is younger, and we moved around every 2 years, and I never got attached to anybody, which was good for me because my oldest brother, who wasn't the partying brother, was a pedophile. He had what they call today issues. In those days, they called them problems. He was a problem child, but in the late 60s, they didn't have places for kids to go with their problems, so you just didn't talk about it. At least they didn't talk about it on military installations. They just didn't talk about it. And I went to my mom once and I said, this is happening and it's weird. And she said, don't lie about your brother. And I went, okay, I don't trust her anymore. And I just hid it, and it just stayed hidden. So when my second brother said, want to try this? I said, okay, that sounds good. And it worked. I did everything I could from an early age to not feel how I felt. And how I felt was dirty and damaged and different and fat and not as good as you. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't blonde enough. I wasn't Gentile enough. I wasn't Catholic enough. Because when you're in the military, there's not very many people of my faith, so we were a small clique. There weren't very many people that were the same as me, so I didn't fit anywhere. I didn't belong to anybody. I didn't know any of that until I got sober. I didn't understand any of that until I was clean. I just knew I didn't belong anywhere with anybody but my brother. When our family retired, we retired to Las Vegas. And I still didn't fit in, I still didn't belong because I was fat, and I was too short, and I had brown hair, and I had this big mat right here in the back, so my mom kept cutting it in a pixie, and she would cut it herself, and it was like with the pinking shears type of cut, and it always looked really stupid, but we couldn't afford haircuts because she was cheap, and I didn't look good, and she made my clothes, and they were all beige, and somebody told me once, you're just beige, and I said, okay, I'm fat and I'm beige, and that was who I was. And that's what I saw myself as. I was a beige, fat kid, and that's all I was ever going to be. And I hear about people, and they always talked about, and when I grow up, I want to be an astronaut. And when I grow up, I want to be a doctor. And when I grow up, I want to be this. And I never wanted to be anything. I didn't aspire to be the old drunk lady. I didn't aspire to be a banker or doctor or anything. I didn't want to be anything. I didn't care. It didn't matter. What I wanted to do was not feel anything. I hid in books, and I hid in food. When I got old enough to find my way, the older brother eventually joined the military and moved away. And he eventually stopped abusing myself and my sister. When I got old enough to hang out with my brother that wasn't a pedophile, I would go to his house and hang out with his friends and party. And I really liked it. I especially liked anything that would remove any feeling whatsoever from me. The first thing I ever drank was Mateus rosé wine. That was good. Warm. That's good stuff. And I threw up for 2 days, and I decided that I was allergic to it. And so I never drank that again. And then he introduced me to the wonderful, amazing, fabulous world of vodka, straight, out of the freezer. And eventually that was the only thing I drank. I drank tequila for a little bit, and then one night, something happened. I drank a bottle of it by myself, and something happened, and I actually forgot about it for over 20 years. And I remembered about it about 5 years ago. I remembered an experience that I had over 20 years earlier that I completely blacked out for 20 years because it was something I would never share in a mixed meeting. But it was something that I did that had to do with a car and a bunch of people and tequila, and it stopped me from ever drinking it again. And it was like this whiteout where I couldn't control myself, and I remember what I did and all of these things, this chain of events that occurred, and I couldn't stop myself, and I couldn't control my actions, and I thought, okay, I must be allergic to that too. So I never drank that again. And then I discovered drugs. And my brother introduced me to these white pills, and they were round, and they had this little slit down the middle, and this little number 714 on them. And he said, be careful with them, they're really strong. And I'm 5'3", and I weighed about 86 pounds, but I was fat. And he said, take them slow, don't take too much, only take a half at a time. So I took a half at a time, and I don't know about anybody else, but my tolerance built up really quick, and I could take 12 at a time and drive. I lived in Las Vegas, and I could take 12 at a time and drive. I lost my car once. I really lost it. I didn't lose it and find it. I really lost it, and I called him. I'm like, I don't know where my car is. And he said, where are you? And I went, I don't know where I am. And he said, okay, find a street sign. I found a street sign. He goes, okay, I'll come get you. And he came and got me. He goes, okay, where'd you leave your car? I went, I don't know. I don't know what I did with it. We never found my car. It was a Pinto. It was okay. And we never found the car. It was gone forever. And he's like, okay, you're doing too much. You got to cut down. And I'm like, I can't cut down. He goes, okay, there's a solution. There's always a solution. We learned that in the book, right? There's a solution. There's a whole chapter right about the solution. He goes, okay, I found something new. And it's going to balance you out some. And he introduced me to cocaine. And he said, try it. And I'm like, I'm not trying it. It was this little itty bitty white bottle. And it was $100 for this little itty bitty white bottle. And I was like, I'm not sticking anything that you've had in your nose in my nose. That's so gross. He goes, just try it. And I tried it, and I didn't like it. But I loved my brother. He was my hero. He was the only person that ever protected or defended me. And he loved me as much as he's ever been capable of loving another human, in my opinion. So I tried it again. And I tried it till I liked it. And I fell in love. And I fell in love with Quaaludes, cocaine, and vodka. And of course, pot. Because you gotta smoke pot. And me and my brother and his friends partied. And that's what we did. I didn't have any friends because I was dirty and I was damaged. And if you knew about me and where I came from, you could never possibly like me. And I knew at the old age of 19 that I would never marry, because who would want to marry somebody like me? So I got a job, because I had to get a job, because I dropped out of college because it interfered with what I was doing. I got a job at a head shop in Las Vegas. It seemed like a good idea. And I worked the late shift. I worked from 4 to midnight, and then I stayed up all night doing what you do when you work in a head shop. And I stayed up all night, and I'd go to sleep, and I'd get up, and I'd eat Wendy's chili and French fries, and go to work and do that. And I did it over and over for about a year, I think, maybe longer, maybe less, I don't remember. And it was close enough to walk because I still didn't have a car. And then in Nevada, they shut down all the head shops because they were sinful, which I found ironic. And at the time, Las Vegas was mostly run by Mormons, so there was a odd double standard happening in Nevada in those days. And this guy came in and he had a suit on. He was really well dressed, really handsome guy, and he was a businessman, and I was very impressed with him. It never occurred to me that he was in a head shop buying cases of manit. He was buying cut, big cases of. He was this businessman though, and I was impressed with him, buying cut by the case. And he started talking. He had a business. He ran a collection agency, and he asked me if I knew how to type. And I didn't, and I said yes. And he asked me if I knew how to run a PBX switchboard, which is a bunch of phones that you plug in, youngsters. And I didn't, and I said I did. And he said, do you want a job? And I needed a job because I was about to lose my job. And I said, sure, I'll take a job. And he was going to give me $6 an hour, and that was big bucks. And he hired me. So I went to work for him, and it was myself and him and his girlfriend and about 9 guys. And they were all making a lot of money, and they knew how to party. And they were all a lot older than me, and I was 19. I was old. I was on my way out. And it was just me and Connie and all these men making all this money. And he introduced me to all of them, and I picked out the neediest, most pathetic guy who made the most money. And I manipulated this man into asking me out, and we dated for a minute. And I convinced him that I was the woman of his dreams. And I convinced him that he wanted to take care of me. And I convinced him that he wanted me to live with him. And I convinced him to put me on his house deed. He bought a house. And I convinced him that I needed to be a co-owner of his home. And I convinced him that he wanted to marry me, and his father had just died, so he was so vulnerable. He was such a perfect target for me. And I knew how to manipulate, because I'd been manipulating all my brother's friends into doing whatever I needed. And because I knew if I didn't get him to marry me, that I would absolutely positively be alone for the rest of my life, because I was so damaged, and I was in so much pain, and I was so messed up from what had happened in the past that I had never looked at or dealt with or felt, because I didn't feel anything but pain. I didn't feel any real feelings. I didn't laugh, and I didn't cry, and I didn't get mad. I didn't do anything but not feel. I just flat out on my face is my happiest feeling. The more out of it I am, the happier I am. So I married him. And I looked at my mother just before I walked down the aisle, because in our wedding that I very vaguely remember, although I was clean at that minute, I looked at her and I said, I do not want to do this. And she said, you're just nervous. And I went, no, I really don't want to do this. And after the ceremony was over, I looked at him and I went, I really shouldn't have done this. And I married him, and 3 months later we moved here because I couldn't live there anymore, because my life was out of control. I got pregnant a couple times in there. I had some abortions. I lied about it for so many years that I've been pregnant I don't know how many times. I have absolutely no idea. And my life was out of control, and Las Vegas was the problem. My mom living there was the problem. My brother living there and being who he was and living in his lifestyle was the problem. So we moved here. And I thought that my husband was going to be a sandal salesman at the Colorado River, and what he turned out to be was a drug smuggler. So who manipulated who, I'm not really sure. So he left me on the doorstep of our drug dealer, and off he went. And to fast forward a lot, or I'll stay loaded and drunk, and you guys will go, wow, she sucked. And I got pregnant, and after a bunch of pregnancies, I married a Catholic because that's what I wanted to be when I was a Jew. I'm still a Jew. But I wanted to be a Catholic growing up because that looked cooler to me. And I went to communion once, and I came home, and I went, Mom, I went to the Catholic church, and I ate the cookie, and it was so cool. And she just about had a heart attack because you don't do that in my religion. And so I married a Catholic, and after a couple of abortions and a miscarriage, I got pregnant, and I went to the doctor, and they said, you're pregnant. I went, I need an abortion. And they said, you can't. And I said, I can. And they said, no, you can't. And I went, I am. And they said, you're in your second trimester. And I went, oh, fuck. And so I got pregnant, and I quit doing drugs because they made me throw up, and I quit drinking because it made me throw up, and I quit smoking because it made me throw up, and I quit drinking soda because everything. I lost 17 pounds in the second trimester. And then I started gaining weight, and I gained 86 pounds. 186 pounds on a 5'3" frame. Not great. But boy, was I healthy. And I was going to be the mother of the year, and cleaned up. I sent my husband to Alcoholics Anonymous because he had a problem. And the big book that I carry around with me is the big book that he got at the one and only meeting he's ever been to. He gave it back to me. He said, you need this more than I do. And I had my child, and I swore to God that I didn't believe in, that I was going to be a good mother. And I came home, and the first day I came home, I had a shot, I took a Quaalude, and I took my first line off of her little baby footprints. And I was off and running. Within 6 months, I was separated. I never slept with him again. Nope. I had to think about it. I moved him out. I eventually moved her out because she was in the way. I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't want to be a mom. It interfered with what I had to do. And I got drunk and loaded for another 5 years. And all I wanted to do was die. I sat on my bed in somebody else's home where I rented an apartment that I don't remember if I ever really even paid the rent. And I lived in one of the bedrooms, and I sat on my bed, and Duck Pond Liquors that used to be on Overland and Palms, they knew my voice on the phone. They delivered me 1.5 liters of the big liter, what is that? Whatever. Of Stoli every Friday afternoon. 3 packs of Virginia Slim Lights. My dealer brought me my Coke. My brother mailed me my Quaaludes till he went to prison. That was an accident. And I would sit on my bed and play Yahtzee and get loaded all weekend long all by myself, and that's where my party ended up. I had a job, which was interesting, at a law firm, and I don't remember how I got it or how come they kept me, but I had a friend there, and he said, I walked around with a box of Kleenex for a year because I had a runny nose. I had a cold. I told him, I have a cold. I have a cold. What I had was a hole in my nose the size of a dime, and I got it on purpose because my dealer had one, and I wanted to be just like her. And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think that normal people that party from time to time set out to get a hole in their nose because their dealer has one. But that's just my thought. So I have it. I still have it. It whistles. If I cry later, which I might, you'll hear it. It's very enchanting. So this guy came up to me at work, and he said, there's a solution if you want one for your problem. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, I have a solution for your problem. And the next day I went back to him. The next day I had a boyfriend. I always was able to get men to do whatever I wanted because I hated everyone. And so I could make them do what I wanted because I didn't care about anybody's feelings, because I didn't care about anything. And I had this boyfriend who I was introduced to at a bar before I got thrown out of it. And he was really big and he was really mean. But he would get me anything I wanted. So I let him do whatever he wanted. to me, which usually included throwing me across the room or hitting me or whatever. And one day he wanted to have sex and I didn't, so he raped me. And somehow I got the courage to tell him to leave. And he did. And it was pretty shocking. He wanted to go to dinner. He was like, I'm going to take a shower, we'll go to dinner. I went, no, you've got to leave, and you've got to never come back. And he did. And he never came back. And that dealer that I had was connected to really mean people, and I had her threaten his life. And I'll get to him in the amends process and what I did about that. And the next day after that happened, I went back to the guy at work and I said, what is the solution that you have? Because what I'm doing is bad. And he called AA for me, and he took me to this meeting at Ohio Street on a Monday night. And I was about 85 pounds. And I took a shower, and I put on the only nice clothes I had, because I didn't know how to shop. I didn't know how to buy anything that didn't include me checking out. I didn't buy clothes. I didn't go to stores. I didn't know how to do anything to take care of myself, really. And I sat there and I listened to the speaker, and she talked about being an alcoholic, but she was a compulsive shopper, and her biggest problem was Nordstrom. And at that time in my life, I didn't even know what Nordstrom was. And if you talk to my husband, he'll let you know that I know what Nordstrom is now. I'm all good there. And I left there saying, I don't have a problem with Nordstrom, and my life is not that unmanageable. I don't know what they're talking about. And I went back to another meeting the next night, and I heard a message that gave me some courage to go back again, and I stayed clean for 15 months. And all I wanted was people to like me, and people were shiny and happy in the rooms, and I stayed around for 15 months, and I did service commitments, and I listened to people talk, and I would do inventories and get sponsors who I wanted them to be my friend. I didn't want a sponsor. I didn't want recovery. I didn't want to work steps. I wanted friends, because I'd never had any. I wanted a boyfriend too, but I wanted friends too. So I'd do inventories and I'd edit them so that no one would ever know, because if you knew who I really was and if you knew that my brother had molested me, I knew that you would hate me. And you would think I was dirty and damaged. And I never listened. I never listened. And I heard this guy talk about being on a mountaintop, and his parents had died in a plane crash, and you know, he lived through it. And I heard him talk about being in recovery, and he got the message, and he got sober, and he worked the steps, and he lived his life, and he was all better, or he was somewhat better. And he gave me hope that I could do it too. So I stayed clean for 15 years, and I pretended to do what everybody else did, and I showed up where everybody else showed up, and I did all the stuff that I thought I was supposed to do, but I kept lying, and I kept lying. And then I went to the doctor because I had these headaches, and I always thought they were hangovers, but I found out they were migraines, so they prescribed me codeine. And I got a migraine one night, and I took one, and it worked. My headache went away. And I'd never taken codeine. It always made me sick. So the day after I had the migraine that I took the codeine as prescribed for pain, I took 2 in case I got a headache the next day. You're not supposed to take it just in case. So I got loaded on codeines, and I stayed loaded for 2 years. And I stayed in the rooms for 2 years, and I lied about it. And I took cakes, and I spoke, and I sponsored people. And I lived a lie, and it made me sicker and sicker and sicker. And I was dying inside, and I was at a convention, and I heard this speaker. And she told my story. She was a heroin addict, and I never did heroin. I have never done heroin yet. Based on my spiritual maintenance, I hope I never have to. She told my story even though she did heroin and I didn't. But she talked about being at a convention and lying about being sober for 2 years and being loaded at a convention. And she said that she surrendered in the Tulsa City jail, And she looked out at the room, and there was about a couple thousand people in this room. And she looked out at the group, and she said, "You can surrender anywhere. You can surrender in jail. You can surrender under a railroad bridge," which, of course, I would never do because it's dirty under there. And she looked out at me, of course, because this is the world over here, and this is me, and you're all revolving around me. And I knew she was looking at me, and she said, "And if you're in this room right now, you can surrender right here." And I knew my time was up. She did it. Why couldn't I? So I went outside after the speaker was over. I couldn't talk to her because I knew that she would know. Even though I was sitting between my two best friends and they didn't know for 2 years. Everybody knew something was wrong with me because I had gained all this weight, because I was lying all the time, I was hiding from people, because no one could know the truth about me. And I was sitting outside of this hotel after the speaker, and I was sitting on the grass, and the comedian walked by me. He goes, "Your secret is killing you." And he walked by, and I went, "Oh, fuck, God's talking to me." It scared me to death, and I'm loaded on codeines, and I'm like, "Oh, God, what's happening?" And I went and found this lady. Her name's Annie, and she's about 22 or 23 years sober now. And I said, "I'm loaded, and I need help." She said, "What you been doing?" I said, "Codeine." "Okay, what do you want to do?" I said, "I don't want to be high anymore." "Okay, let's dump them out." So they went down the drain in Anaheim into their sewer system. She said, "Do you believe in God?" "No." "Okay, you can use mine." "Okay, I'll take yours. I didn't have my own. I didn't deserve my own." So we did the steps, all of them. There's 12. I'd always done 1 and 12. I'm powerless and I'm of service. Fuck the rest. I don't need those. My life is unmanageable. I did a 4th step. When we got to my brother, I told her. I'd never told anybody except for the first guy that I was married to. What's his name? And I actually forgot his name the other day. It was great. And she suggested to me that I do some outside help because it was really hurting me. It was blocking me. And she said, "There's a lot of sunlight for you. If you get some other help, it might help you." So I did for a really long time. And I read in my 5th step, and we did my defects, and I had a couple, and she had a lot more for me about me. We found out that I'm really arrogant, I'm really selfish. We found out that I'm really damaged, and that there was a lot of hope for me. Then we made a list. We made 4 lists. That lady that spoke to me, and only me in that room of 2,000 people, she made 4 lists. The easy amends, ones that are a little harder, ones that maybe I could do down the road, and then the never-evers. And I did my 9th step, my 8th step like that. And my first 9th step column was pretty easy, and my second one was pretty easy too, and then my third one was mostly my daughter and my ex-husband and the guy that I had threatened to have killed. And I tried to find him, and I was really diligent, and apparently he's going to be put in my life when I least expect it because I haven't been able to find him. My daughter came back into my life. She's been in my life since she was 4. She's 24 now. She might be an alcoholic, she might not. Well, all I know is that she's happy today, and she's lovely today. I saw her last weekend. She was delightful. And I'm really happy for her. She's in love, and I'm in love with the idea that she's in love. And we'll just leave it with that. So I finished up all the people that were on that 9-step list, except for my never ever, fuck him, he'll never hear from me. I'm going to have him killed, and I don't care. I actually was going to kill him myself. I had a plan. I was going to go to Seattle, and I was going to shoot him and kill him myself. Let me tell you the flaws in my plan. I don't know how to shoot a gun, and I don't own one. And he lived in Hawaii at the time. Couple of flaws. So we went over it, and we decided that I wouldn't kill him. When I got to my 4th column when I got to my brother, I was done with therapy, and I was tired of it. My sponsor, who spoke here recently, Ralph is his name, and he's fabulous. His birthday's tomorrow. He'll be 21. He says that a resentment is putting you in prison, but I'm the guard and I hold the key, and that keeps us both in prison. When I heard that, I decided it was time to let go of my resentment for my brother, and I didn't want him to die anymore. So I made a plan and didn't tell the sponsor about it. I decided to do the amends on my own, because that's always my best plan, is to do it on my own. And I was gonna, I had to see my brother because my parents were gonna be married for 50 years, and I had to go to their anniversary and all this shit. And I knew I'd have to see him, and I was gonna do this and get it over with and get my peace. And as you can maybe understand by my tone of voice, it was not gonna be a great plan. So I had it all set out, and that was gonna be in June, and then in March my grandmother died. And she was the only thing that ever held our family together. We're not close, we're not tight, and we don't like each other. That's my family. We put the fun in dysfunctional. And so we all went to Las Vegas to bury Grandma. And I've now healed enough that I've been through one pretty heinous relationship that took me to a better relationship, that took me to an incredibly great relationship, and I'm engaged to the incredibly great guy now. So he goes with me to Las Vegas, and I say, whatever you do, don't leave me alone for one single second with him. As soon as you leave me alone, he's going to swoop down, he's going to want to talk. I don't want to talk to him. Don't leave me alone, don't leave me alone, don't leave me alone, don't, you know, it's like pounding it into him all the way out there because we have to drive to Las Vegas one more time. So we go to the funeral, and we go back to the house after the funeral. And my husband's business is, my fiance then, my husband now, his business is run completely on the phone. His phone rings. He's like, oh, I got to get the phone. I went, no, don't leave. He goes, no, it'll just be 1 second. He walks away. The second he walks away, my brother walks up. This is in March. The amends isn't until June. I need 3 months. I'm not ready. He walks up. Can I talk to you for a second? No, I'm not ready. I'll talk to you in June. I just want to talk to you for a second. I really don't want to talk to you. I'm not prepared to talk to you. We'll talk in June. I just want you to know I'm very sorry for all the damage I've caused you, and I want you to let you know that I've been sober for 10 years now. I'm like, okay. Really? He goes, yeah. I've been sober for 10 years. Oh, and I've been in therapy for about that long. Okay, so we talked for a few more minutes, and I said, okay, let's talk some more in June. And when we got together in June, my whole plan had changed, and we talked, and something else my sponsor said is that I can forgive behavior without condoning it. I never have to tell him, yeah, what you did was just A-okay and fine by me, and I'm all right with it. But I can forgive him and let him have his life without feeling like I'm a victim. I was an incest victim my whole life. I'm not a victim anymore, ever again. I went through years of sobriety without being able to be hugged or touched by a man or a woman at all. And I mean at all. I couldn't have sex, I couldn't be intimate, and that meant I couldn't be a chip person at a meeting. I'm still uncomfortable with it sometimes. I got to let go of all of that at that time in my life, and that was the most freeing thing I've ever done. My life today is the most incredible experience anybody could ever hope for. I know a new freedom and a new happiness. I have my own God today. I go to a workshop every Sunday. 3 years ago, during the third step prayer, I had a spiritual awakening of almost the white light variety. I knew that God was. That's all it was. It wasn't, nothing came down. It wasn't anything weird. God is for me, and I'm thrilled for that. Maybe I didn't have any of that. I want to be a this or I want to be a that because I want to be a special worker. I want to be an alcoholic. I want to be a drug addict. I want to be a sober member. I want to be a good wife and a good mother and a good sponsor. I get to sponsor people. I sponsor 5 people. They trust me with their lives. They trust me with their secrets. I'm a closed-mouthed friend. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love this fellowship. Thank you, Sean, for having me here. Thanks for letting me share.